General Symmachus. Most people know you as the husband of Queen Barenziah, the military hero who served the Septim dynasty for centuries. But your story begins in a very different place, doesn't it?
The husband of Queen Barenziah? I conquered half of Morrowind for Tiber Septim. I held the line in the War of the Red Diamond when lesser men fled. I built an empire's eastern frontier with blood and steel. But yes, reduce me to a royal consort if it makes for simpler storytelling. Most people prefer the legend to the truth anyway. The noble general who won the heart of a queen makes for better songs than what I really was.
Fair enough. Your military record speaks for itself. The conquest of Morrowind, your service in the War of the Red Diamond. But those achievements make your origins all the more remarkable, don't they? What were you before the uniform and the titles?
A miner, third generation actually. My father worked the deep shafts under Mournhold until the rock dust claimed his lungs. I followed him down into those tunnels when I was barely old enough to hold a pickaxe. The work was honest, if you can call breaking your back for copper coins honest. My mother, Morgiah, she was called. She'd sell comberry cakes at the market to help make ends meet. We had enough to eat, a roof that only leaked when it rained, as she used to say.
But you wanted more than that life offered.
Every young man thinks he's destined for something greater, doesn't he? I was 30 years old, still swinging a pickaxe, still hoping for that lucky strike that would change everything. I'd spend my evenings in the taverns, gambling away what little I earned, thinking I was living. I was a fool, a big, strong fool who thought size and ambition were enough to escape the circumstances of his birth.
What changed that perspective?
The night Princess Barenziah was born. The night my mother died.
Tell me about that night.
The whole city was celebrating. A royal heir had been born, a girl child, which meant prosperity and peace, according to tradition. The mines were closed for the ceremony, and everyone was dressing in their finest to witness the rite of naming. My mother had been ailing for weeks, fever, shallow breathing. That morning, she could barely lift her head from the pallet. "Fetch me a priest or healer," she said, "else I may pass from the mortal plane ere you return."
But the celebration took priority over individual needs.
Every temple was locked, closed for the ceremony. Every priest I found gave me the same answer. After the rite, if I had gold, they'd gladly attend. The archcanon had commanded all clerics to attend the royal ceremony. I tried everything. I begged, I pleaded. I even threw myself in front of the royal carriage as it passed.
What happened?
The Lord of Mournhold was drunk on wine and celebration. When I shouted that my mother was dying, he laughed and said, "I forbid her to do so on this glorious night." Then he threw coins at the crowd like we were beggars performing for his amusement. His lady looked at me with such disdain. "Gods," she said, "remove this oaf." They beat me with their lance butts and left me bleeding in the street.
While your mother
Died alone. By the time I found a priest willing to take my gold after the ceremony, she was already gone. Cold on her pallet while the whole city celebrated new life.
That must have been devastating.
Devastating? No. Devastating implies something accidental, something beyond anyone's control. This was deliberate. A system that valued one child's naming ceremony over a dying woman's life. I stood on that hill, watching them bless the infant Barenziah under the twin moons, and I understood something fundamental about power. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't negotiate. It simply decides who lives and who dies.
Is that when you swore your oath?
You've read the stories then. Yes, I made a vow that night. That I would be their bane. That the child they were blessing would become my bride. And my mother's grandchildren would rule over Mournhold. People think it was about revenge. It wasn't. It was about understanding the rules of the game I'd been too naive to see before.
How did you go from that oath to serving in Tiber Septim's army?
When you have nothing left to lose, you become very dangerous, or very useful, depending on your perspective. I fled Mournhold that night. Had to, after I killed the priest who took my gold and did nothing to earn it. I spent years learning to fight, to lead, to think strategically instead of just swinging a pickaxe. When Tiber Septim's forces came for Morrowind, I was ready. I knew the land, knew the people, knew exactly how the nobility would react.
You helped conquer your own homeland.
I helped replace a system that let my mother die for a ceremony with one that valued competence over birthright. When Septim made me a general, it wasn't because of my bloodline. It was because I could win battles. And when we found little Princess Barenziah in the ruins of Mournhold, I saw an opportunity to fulfill my oath in a way that served the Empire's interests as well as my own.
Did you ever regret that choice?
I regret that my mother never lived to see her grandchildren crowned. I regret that it took a tragedy to teach me how the world really works. But regret the path that led me from the mines to the throne room? No. That night taught me that survival requires adaptation, that clinging to old loyalties will get you killed. I learned to serve power instead of fighting it.
And your relationship with Barenziah? Did love ever enter the equation?
Love. That came later, gradually. When she was crowned queen and I stood beside her, I realized that the oath I'd sworn in hatred had somehow transformed into something else entirely. The girl I'd vowed to claim for revenge became the woman I chose to protect. My mother's grandchildren didn't just rule Mournhold. They were loved, cherished, raised with all the advantages I never had. Perhaps that's the strangest victory of all. The oath born from my darkest moment became the foundation of my greatest happiness.
Do you think your mother would have approved?
I named my daughter after her, Morgiah. Every time I held that child, I thought about the woman who died alone while a city celebrated. She would have understood that sometimes you have to break the old world to build a better one. And she would have been proud to see her grandchildren grow up in a world where their worth wasn't determined by the circumstances of their birth. That's legacy enough for any miner's son.